All right, listeners, welcome back to the deep dive. You ready to head back into the grim darkness of the 41st millennium?
Always up for a good dose of bolter fire and chainsword action. What grim tale are we cracking open today?
Today we're diving headfirst into the fiery depths of Nick Kyme's Salamander, the first book in the Tome of Fire trilogy. And let me tell you, this book is hot.
The Salamanders, huh? They're an interesting bunch. Always love their whole fire-forged aesthetic.
Oh yeah, they're not your average grim and gritty Space Marines. So for those listeners who might be new to Warhammer 40k, or maybe just need a refresher on why the 41st millennium is such a delightful place to visit, can you set the stage?
Buckle up, folks, because we're talking about a galaxy where humanity is clinging to survival by its fingernails. We've got a million ways to die out there, from demonic incursions to alien invasions, and let's not forget about those pesky heretics always trying to burn down the Imperium from within.
It's a delightful time to be alive. Or, not alive. Mostly not alive, if we're being honest.
Grimdark, remember?
Yeah.
But hey, that's where the Adeptus Astartes come in.
Yes, the Space Marines. Genetically engineered super soldiers, clad in power armor, wielding weapons that would make a Chaos Dreadnought jealous.
Basically, walking tanks with a serious case of Emperor Protects syndrome.
And in Salamander, we're following the Salamanders chapter who, as their name suggests, have a bit of a thing for fire.
A bit. They make the Emperor's burning legion look like a bunch of Boy Scouts trying to start a campfire with wet sticks. These guys are forged in fire, literally and figuratively. They come from a volcanic death world called Nocturne, where the air is thick with ash and the lava flows like water.
Yeah, Nocturne. Not exactly a top vacation destination, unless you're really into extreme heat and the constant threat of being swallowed by a volcano. So how does growing up in a place like that shape a Space Marine chapter?
Imagine a culture obsessed with fire. It's in their craftsmanship, their rituals, their very belief system. They've got this Promethean cult, a unique take on the imperial faith that emphasizes courage, self-sacrifice, and the purging power of fire.
Right. It's not just about burning things. It's about cleansing, about rebirth, about using fire to create as much as to destroy.
It makes them stand out from a lot of other chapters who tend to be a bit more straightforward in their approach to warfare.
A bit. The Salamanders are practically poets with flamethrowers compared to some of the chapters out there.
That's a good way to put it.
Now, this deep dive is all about Salamander, so let's get into it. The book starts with our heroes returning from a mission when they encounter a crippled ship, the Archimedes Rex. This isn't some random freighter, is it?
Not at all. This is an Adeptus Mechanicus vessel. We're talking tech priests, those guys with more cybernetics than flesh, worshipping the machine god and guarding their technological secrets like they're sacred relics.
And let's just say the Salamanders aren't exactly welcomed with open arms.
Open servo claws, maybe?
Yeah.
The ship is crawling with malfunctioning servitors, those cybernetic zombies the Mechanicus loves so much.
Nothing says welcome aboard like a rusty buzzsaw coming at your face. So we've got a derelict ship, malfunctioning robots, and just to make things interesting, another Space Marine chapter shows up.
The Marines Malevolent. Talk about a clash of cultures.
It's like fire and ice, or maybe fire and more fire, but the kind of fire that wants to burn your house down and steal your promethium.
They have a reputation, let's just say that. Grim, efficient, and not afraid to get their hands dirty. Or bloody. Or both.
They're also there to loot the Archimedes Rex, right? Salvage rights and all that.
They're not exactly known for their compassion, but the Salamanders, they're all about protecting the innocent, even if those innocents are a bunch of grumpy tech priests who'd rather see them burned at the stake.
And this difference in ideology, this fundamental clash of values, it sets the stage for the entire book.
Oh, absolutely. It's a simmering tension that explodes into full-blown conflict as the story unfolds.
So we've got malfunctioning tech priests, a mysterious derelict ship, and 2 chapters of Space Marines who'd rather fight each other than share a cup of recaf. Where do the Salamanders even go from here?
Well, their original mission was to find their lost primarch, Vulkan.
Vulkan. The Salamanders' legendary leader, missing for millennia. Now, that's a story for another time, but it's important to remember this is what drives the Salamanders.
Absolutely. Their search for Vulkan is at the heart of their chapter's identity, and it's what leads them to the planet Scoria.
Scoria? A volcanic hellscape, even by Warhammer 40k standards. It's here that Chaplain Elysius, their spiritual leader, has a vision. And let's just say this vision isn't all sunshine and rainbows.
More like fire and brimstone. Elysius sees a connection between Scoria and Vulkan, a sign that their primarch may have walked this cursed world long ago. This vision sends the Salamanders on a quest to uncover Scoria's secrets, a quest that will test their faith, their loyalty, and their courage.
And just to make things more interesting, their strike cruiser, the Vulkan's Wrath, crash lands on the planet.
Talk about adding insult to injury, stranded, facing hostile environments, and armed to the teeth. They're about to get a crash course in Scoria's more unwelcoming inhabitants.
We're talking cheating beasts, right?
Yeah.
Like giant armored bugs from hell.
You got it. These creatures are just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to Scoria's dangers, but amidst the battles with these creatures, they stumble upon something far more intriguing, an ancient fortress built of cold, unforgiving iron.
And this is where we meet the Iron Warriors.
Right.
Now, for our listeners who haven't delved into the Horus Heresy, the Iron Warriors are...
They're one of the original Space Marine legions, but they turned against the Emperor during the Horus Heresy, a galaxy-spanning civil war that nearly destroyed the Imperium. Known for their siege warfare and their unforgiving nature, finding their symbol on Scoria raises more questions than it answers.
Okay, listeners, we're about to get into spoiler territory.
Oh.
If you want to experience the twists and turns of this story for yourself, now's the time to pause the deep dive and grab a copy of Salamander. But trust us, you'll want to hear how this all unfolds.
Oh, definitely. This is where things get really interesting.
So the Salamanders, expecting a fight, breach the fortress. But instead of encountering fierce resistance, they find something far more unsettling.
The Iron Warriors are all dead, every last one of them.
And not just dead. They're posed in these macabre scenes, frozen in their final moments of agony. It's like something out of a horror pict, designed to instill fear and unease.
The Salamanders are left wondering what could have wiped out an entire fortress of Iron Warriors.
This is where Salamander goes from a thrilling action story to something much darker, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. This discovery kicks off a descent into the heart of darkness, both literally and figuratively. The Salamanders have stumbled upon something ancient and evil, something tied to the warp, that dimension of raw psychic energy where demons and nightmares dwell.
And speaking of psychic phenomena, Sergeant Sugan, one of our main Salamanders, starts having some seriously disturbing visions. He can sense something lurking beneath the surface of Scoria, something dark and hungry.
Sugan's connection to the warp is growing, but it's a double-edged sword. He's getting glimpses of a greater threat, a darkness that even the stoic salamanders should fear. This psychic presence seems deeply entwined with the fate of the Iron Warriors.
And as if things couldn't get any weirder, while exploring the wreckage of the Archimedes Rex, Dakir and Periel stumble upon something truly remarkable.
This is where things get really interesting. Deep within the bowels of the wrecked ship, they find an ancient chamber, untouched by time and the ravages of war. In the center of this chamber, seated upon a throne of metal and stone, sits a Salamanders Space Marine. Not just any salamander, mind you, but one from an era long past.
His name is Gravius, and he's old, even for a Space Marine.
Ancient, in fact. He's clad in armor dating back to the Horus Heresy, and he's surrounded by the skeletal remains of his battle brothers. This is a warrior who has witnessed millennia of war and bloodshed.
And for listeners keeping track, that means Gravius was alive during Vulkan's time. He's a living relic, a direct link to the Salamander's past.
Exactly. His presence adds a whole new layer of mystery to the story. What is Gravius doing on this ship? What does he know about Vulkan's disappearance? And why has he been guarding this chamber for thousands of years?
Expert speaker, before we delve any further into Gravius's tale, let's pause here for now. What do you say we come back and delve into the orcs, chaos, and a whole lot more in part 2? All right, listeners, welcome back to the deep dive. Remember where we left off? Ancient secrets, psychic whispers, and a whole lot of dead iron warriors.
Ah, just another Tuesday in the grim darkness of the 41st millennium. But things are about to get a whole lot more interesting for our salamander friends.
Because last time we conveniently forgot to mention the orcs, didn't we?
Oops. But hey, who doesn't love a good WGH? Especially when it involves a mysterious black rock orbiting a volcanic death world.
Let's just say that Black Rock is acting like a dinner bell for every orc in a 5-sector radius.
And these orcs aren't here for tea and crumpets. They're bringing the pain, and the salamanders are caught right in the middle of it.
Talk about a bad day to be a Space Marine. So stranded on a crumbling planet, facing down orcs, chaos, and the mystery surrounding their primarch's disappearance. What's a salamander to do?
Improvise, adapt, and overcome, of course. with a healthy dose of bolter fire and promethium flames.
Because why make things complicated when you could just burn them to ashes?
Exactly. Now remember that massive cannon the Salamanders found in the Iron Warrior's fortress?
Oh yeah, the one that looks like it could crack a planet in half?
Yeah.
Definitely hard to miss that one.
Well, Nick Kyme, ever the tactical genius, decides to put it to good use, their plan. Use the cannon to obliterate the Black Rock, cut off the orcs' psychic reinforcement, and hopefully buy themselves some time to figure out what the hell is going on.
Sounds like a solid plan, except for the whole how do we even fire this ancient death machine part.
Yes, technical details. Always a pain in the power-armored backside. Turns out this cannon requires a rare mineral called Firon to power it up.
Firing sounds expensive. Do they just happen to have some lying around in the Vulkan's Wrath's glove compartment?
Wouldn't that be convenient? No, this Firon is found deep within the fiery heart of Scoria, in mines controlled by, wait for it, human settlers.
Humans? On Scoria, they realize this planet is trying to kill them, right?
It's the 41st millennium. Trying to kill you is basically a Tuesday for most of humanity. But yeah, these settlers are tough, resourceful, and more than a little wary of the giant, fire-worshipping super soldiers who've suddenly taken an interest in their minds.
I can imagine. Hey, could we borrow some of that super rare mineral you've been risking your lives to extract? We need it to blow up a giant black rock that's driving everyone crazy. Oh, and by the way, we may or may not be followed by a horde of bloodthirsty orcs. Thanks.
More or less. So a small team is assembled to secure the Firon. We've got Dekur still wrestling with those pesky psychic visions, Ucken, the resident pyromaniac, and Puriel, the ever-brooding librarian. What could possibly go wrong?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe the fact that the cursed visions are getting worse, like whispers of ancient evils and the very fabric of reality unraveling, kind of worse.
Yeah, about that. As they descend into the mines, Dakir's psychic senses go haywire. He's bombarded with visions of dragons, fire, and ancient battles fought beneath a sky of swirling chaos. It's clear that something wicked this way comes, and it's not here to offer the Salamanders a nice cup of recaf.
This is Warhammer 40k. Nobody drinks recaf. It's all about that black coffee brewed strong enough to melt ceramite.
But back to Dakir's visions. What do they mean? Is Scoria built on top of an ancient chaos portal or something?
It's not entirely clear, but there's definitely a connection to chaos. And remember those dragon warriors we mentioned earlier?
Oh yeah, the Chaos Space Marines with a flair for the dramatic. Always a pleasure to have them around.
They're back, and they're led by a sinister chaos sorcerer named Nealon. Turns out he's also interested in the Firon for reasons that are probably not good for anyone involved.
So it's a race against time, against the orcs, against chaos, and against a planet that's basically having a cosmic temper tantrum.
And in the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, those are the kind of odds you learn to live with, or die trying. Listeners, we're back in the fiery depths of Salamander. And let me tell you, it's about to get messy.
It's the final showdown, the climax of all the chaos and carnage we've been building up to.
We've got Dakir battling demons in the mines, Nick Kyme holding the line against a tide of orcs, and Gravius, our ancient salamander, still chilling in his tomb.
It's a lot to juggle, but Kyme pulls it off brilliantly.
Oh, absolutely. So where do we even begin? How about with Dakir? Those psychic visions he's been having, they weren't just bad dreams, were they?
Not even close. He's tapped into something ancient and powerful, something that could either save him or destroy him.
It's like trying to tame a wild beast, except the beast is made of pure psychic energy and wants to tear your soul apart.
And in Dakir's case, the beast has a name, Nick Kyme, the chaos sorcerer leading the dragon warriors. He senses Dakir's potential, his raw power, and he wants to corrupt him, to twist him to the will of chaos.
Talk about a bad day at the office. So what happens? Does Dakir give in to the whispers of chaos, or does he stay true to the Emperor's light?
It's a battle for his very soul, and it's one of the most intense scenes in the entire book.
Kyme really knows how to write a psychic duel. It's all fire and shadow, whispers of madness, and the chilling realization that some things are best left buried.
But through it all, Dakir holds on to his faith. In the Emperor, in his primarch, and in his battle brothers, he refuses to be another pawn in Chaos's game.
And it's in the heat of this psychic battle that Dakir comes face to face with the dragon warrior who murdered his former captain.
Talk about a grudge match for the ages. This is personal.
So does vengeance win out? Does Dakir get his revenge?
He defeats his enemy, but it's a hollow victory. He realizes that revenge doesn't bring back the dead. It doesn't erase the pain. It only leaves you empty.
A grim lesson, but an important one. Even in the 41st millennium, Revenge comes at a cost.
Absolutely.
But while Dakir is fighting demons in the mines, Nikol and the remaining Salamanders are making their last stand against the Orc horde.
The orcs are relentless, a green tide crashing against the walls of the Iron Warrior's fortress.
But the Salamanders is not giving up. They're fighting with everything they've got, bolters blazing, flames roaring.
They're outmatched, outnumbered, but they're not backing down. Not while there's breath in their lungs and promethium in their tanks.
It's a testament to their courage, their tenacity, their sheer, stubborn refusal to back down from a fight. But is it enough?
Just when all hope seems lost, the cannon fires.
They actually got that ancient fire-empowered orc-smashing cannon working.
Ugh.
Tell me it's as epic as I'm imagining.
Oh, it's beyond epic. Imagine a beam of pure energy tearing through the sky, vaporizing orcs and sending chunks of that black rock hurtling through space.
The ultimate display of firepower.
The orcs never stood a chance.
But Scoria, she's not out of the woods yet, is she?
The planet's been through the ringer, volcanoes are erupting, the ground is splitting apart. It's like the whole world is having a nervous breakdown.
And just when you thought it was safe to go back into the warp, who shows up but the Marines' Malevolent?
And they brought their flagship, the Purgatory, with them.
Uh-oh. This can't be good. They're not here to offer the Salamanders a ride home, are they?
Actually, they are.
Seriously. After all that tension, all that animosity.
Vineyard, the Marines' Malevolent chapter master, he's a pragmatist. Ruthless, but pragmatic. He recognizes the Salamanders' strength, their value as allies.
Right. Because in the 41st millennium, the enemy of your enemy is sometimes your friend.
Exactly. But of course, there's a catch.
There's always a catch.
He wants the archaeotech, the Salamanders, salvaged from the Archimedes wrecks. Those ancient weapons and artifacts, the ones the Marines' Malevolent were so interested in.
So it's a deal with the devil? What does the Salamanders do?
They make the deal. Ninkle knows they can't fight everyone. They relinquish the archaeotech, board the Purgatory, and watch as Scoria finally succumbs to its wounds, breaking apart in a cataclysmic eruption.
What a way to go out. So long, Scoria. You won't be missed. But what about Gravius? Did they manage to convince him to leave his tomb?
He chooses to stay. Bound by duty, by honor, he remains behind with his fallen brothers, a silent guardian in the face of oblivion.
A warrior's end. At least the human settlers made it out right.
Most of them, at least. The Marines, Malevolent, true to their word, ferry them to a new world, a fresh start.
And the Salamanders?
Battered, but not broken, they continue their search for Vulkan, forever changed by their ordeal on Scoria.
And there you have it, listeners. Salamander by Nick Kyme. A tale of fire and fury, of sacrifice and brotherhood, of the endless struggle for survival in the grim darkness of the 41st millennium. We'll be back soon with another deep dive into the depths of Warhammer 40k. Until then, stay vigilant, and may the Emperor protect.